Welcome back to Morning Cup. I am so honored today because I have Marisa Lonic with me. Marisa is a keynote speaker, life and business coach, three-time author, top-rated podcast host, and the founder of Mama Work It. After spending nearly 15 years in corporate leadership positions, Marisa shifted gears to become a full-time mom manager and business mom manager. Through her books, courses, and coaching programs, she helps busy moms juggle mom life, work life, wife life, fill in the blank life. Her time management and goal achievement strategies have helped the most overwhelmed mamas turn their dreams into a reality, even when they thought they had no time to make any of it happen. When she's not supporting working parents with the daily juggle, you can find her cooking and baking delicious meals for her kids, may not eat them, running, okay, maybe walking and running, in her neighborhood, and hanging out with the 5 amazing guys her family calls her husband and her 4 kiddos. Thank you so much for being here today, Marisa.
Thank you so much for having me and for that warm welcome.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to dive into your journey and how you got here today. So if you could, I know it's a long journey, but if you could kind of put it in a nutshell of how you got here today, I'm sure everybody would love to know.
Absolutely. So I started my journey really kind of when I entered motherhood, because that is, as you mentioned, who I really support in my business. And what happened was I unexpectedly learned I was going to be a mom. And then I unexpectedly learned I would be having twins. And so as a planner by nature, as someone who, really focused on strategy and like thinking ahead, this was a big shock to my system. And while of course it was such a blessing, I mean, we welcomed it, it took lots of kind of pivoting and making things work. And it did. And we did make it work. And I've always been a working mom. So after about 4 months of, being home with my babies postpartum, I went back to my corporate career. And I felt, I think, I learned kind of the ropes of working motherhood. I think from the outside looking in, it appeared like I had it all together, right? I mean, I was going to work, getting there on time most days. I was keeping my house like in order. I wouldn't say it was immaculate all the time, but it was livable, right? I was keeping the kids going, married, and, all the things. But internally, I was feeling overwhelmed. Like I was feeling all these things of, this kind of vicious cycle of I would work, do all the things, take care of the kids, take care of the house, take care of work issues, my team and everything there, kind of feel burnt out and resentful for all the things I was doing, pop a Band-Aid on it by like going to take care of myself by like getting a mani-pedi or meeting up with a friend or something, and then repeat this vicious cycle all over again. And so even though, again, looking like from the outside looking in, it looked like I was thriving, I felt like I was surviving during that time. So what happened? I'm an ambitious woman. I wanted to be growing in my career, yet I also wanted to be the best possible mom, wife, all the things outside of work. I get offered this significant job promotion. And at first I'm excited. And then I'm like, wait a minute, how would I ever make this work for me? I already feel like I have zero time for myself, zero time to make this all work. The balance is not there. And this is going to be across the country. I'm a native New Yorker, and this job was on the West Coast. And I really struggled with deciding what to do. I definitely let fear set in, let all those what if scenarios kind of make up my mind. And I turned down the opportunity. And I was plagued with regret. I turned it down on a Friday. The entire weekend, I was just so unsure that if I had made the right decision. And what did we do? We decided, my husband and I talked, and we said, well, let's just try it. So I did. I asked if the position could be reinstated for me. Fortunately, it was. We all moved cross country. I started a new job, a longer commute, a more challenging situation. But what I realized was managing my time, it didn't necessarily get harder in this new environment with all these different and new demands. It just got different. And I got really good at maximizing my intentionality, my efficiency, And the beautiful thing about all this is I was able to pretty easily implement all of those things because I was coming from a place of fulfillment. I was coming from a place where I was taking care of me in this way, believe it or not. Yes, even taking a new job felt like a form of self-care, if you will, because I was fueling my ambition at the time. And
Mhm.
so this all kind of came to ahead with my entrepreneurial journey because it allowed me to start sharing my story, sharing tips, tricks, ways I was making working motherhood work, even in a demanding environment at work, uh, via a blog. So I started blogging, I started sharing things. Then I wrote my first book. Then it turned into a coaching practice, courses. And now that is where I'm at with my business. I juggled this alongside the corporate world for a number of years.
Mm.
So if you're someone watching or listening who is thinking about starting a business or unsure, you have the time for it while you're still working full time or part time, or even being a mom or dad or whatever that is, you can absolutely make that happen no matter how busy you think you are. I did. I added to my family during this time. I mean, plenty of transitions happened in my world. And now that's what I do full time.
Oh, I love it. And that's just, it shows that there's hope for somebody else listening that might think, okay, well, how do I make that jump? How do I go from corporate to building my business? And it does take time. And I love that you're bringing this up. And others have brought this up too. And I think it's important to know sometimes you can't just jump from full-time corporate to full-time entrepreneurship unless you have support or finances or whatever it is. But it's that gradual process. So I'm curious, what was that initial, like when you started the blog, is that what made you turn into a book? What was that like jump from there?
Yeah, the blog started as a creative outlet for myself and a way to share information. You know, I was
Mhm.
always in corporate leadership positions and I loved mentorship as
Mm,
part of that job
yeah.
or those jobs that I had. I loved supporting my teams. I loved helping them grow, you know, getting them promoted, all of those things. And I thought, I want to share this with the working mom environment because I'd always get that question of how do you find the time to make that happen or do this or do that? So it really started as a way to support the community and just I like to write. It was a great creative outlet, a way for me to like incorporate a hobby that I enjoyed into my life. What happened after that was I thought, I have a lot to share.
Yeah.
These blog posts are a great way to do that, but I think there's more to this. I think that this could be compiled into something that could really have more impact on the woman who wants to read this. So it came from there. And it also came from just personal goals. I mean, I think we all should have, if we don't have already, a running list of things we want to achieve, a dream list, a goal list, call it what you want.
Mhm.
And publishing a book for me was one of those things that came to be once I realized how much I really enjoyed writing. So I just really married those two ideas together. And that's how the first book was born.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I love that you just followed your passion of writing and being able to turn it into something that was tangible for others to read all over. And I mean, blogging can definitely do that, but more so in a book format. You're really helping so many people. And the questions that you were getting of the same question over and over, and being able to compile that into a book, your first book, and then writing two more after that. So are those similar? Tell us a little bit more about those two books.
Yeah. So the first book is called Time Momager, How to Get the Time You Need to Do the Things You Want. And it's really for the mom, the working mom who is feeling like overwhelmed. She has no time for herself. She doesn't know how to get any of these ideas into her regular routine or life. So that's the first book. The second book is
Mhm.
actually a journal planner.
Mm,
So it's sort of a tool that you can use. I recommend each evening before bedtime, 15 minutes or less. Trust me, I don't have any extra time for like long, lengthy things to do. And yeah, it's a reflection on the day just to kind of check in with yourself, a guided journal. It's kind of like I've gotten the feedback, the journal for non-journalers, because
Mhm.
believe it or not, for the longest time, as much as I love to write, I did not like to journal. I just felt like it was a waste of my time, believe it or not. I have since
Mhm.
changed and I enjoy journaling now and I make time for that, but I didn't always feel this way. So when I
Mhm.
created it, I knew the value of it, but I also knew the mindset around this from many people, including myself in the past. So there's a quick reflective, like guided journal practice every
Mhm.
day, 5 minutes or less. and then a strategy plan for the following day to ensure that you have clarity, you have intention, you have focus, and that you're including yourself in that plan.
I love that. I love that it's so tangible too, because a lot of times it's like that interactive piece where you're really absorbing the material versus just reading something too, like the journal aspect and planner. I love that. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah. And the third book, which comes out this fall, is
Yes.
called Biz Momager, the
Mm,
working mom's guide to go from employee to entrepreneur.
mm,
And as with any of my blogging or my first book as well, it's a good mix, I think, of, coaching and helping you with steps, practical advice, but also personal and really vulnerable stories that, gosh, if you knew me, I'm a pretty private person. And when I release a book, like I put it all out there. It is so not in character for me, but I know that relatability piece is so crucial and important for people to read. And so I do this. And then every time I publish anything, I have like a vulnerability hangover the next day. But I know the value is so important and necessary there. So it's really, a good combination of, like I said, that support, that advice, that motivation that you need alongside my personal journey on how I got there. And trust me, it was not a straight line from A to B. Like it was ups and downs. And there was a lot of analysis on whether it was the right time for me to make that leap. I was the breadwinner in my family for a long time, six-figure corporate leader. So when you have this passion and this dream, if you're not exceeding that salary on paper, sometimes it doesn't feel like the logical choice. But from an alignment perspective, it finally got to the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. It just wasn't my path anymore.
mm. I love that you listened to your gut and like just trusted that journey that you were going to go on. And because a lot of times people will ignore it or just suppress it and say, okay, well, I have to focus. I have this 6-figure income. I'm the breadwinner. I can't make that leap. But really just trusting and believing in yourself is so key. And I just love that you are doing that. And going back to the book too, writing something that's so vulnerable and really sharing your truth just gives permission for others to do the same and also know that they're not alone in this journey, because a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm the only one dealing with this, but really hearing other stories of other empowering women that have gone through stuff and the ups and downs. So that brings me to my next question is really with your business and growing your business and everything you've been able to accomplish, has there been any roadblocks that maybe almost stopped you, but you persevered through?
Oh my gosh, plenty. Plenty. I feel like there's always traffic or something in the way, right? I mean, the journey is never linear, in my opinion. And I mean, even if you are super successful in your business, I
Mhm,
think everyone has days where they question what they're doing. I
mhm.
mean, I still have days like that where I'm like, oof, am I doing things okay here? Like, how's it going? And
Yeah.
I actually was just talking to someone recently for my podcast about imposter syndrome. And I think
Yes.
that still affects anyone and everyone out there. Like I've heard
Mhm,
even like celebrities like J-Lo suffer from imposter syndrome sometimes. So yeah,
mhm.
I would say definitely ups and downs, definitely roadblocks. Particular things that I could call out just to exemplify, like, okay, let's just talk about the white elephant in the room. Like 2020 was a huge, a huge
Yeah.
shift, right? For many of us, whether you were in business already, whether you were not in business, but
Mhm,
I tend to look at that time period, the pandemic time period, at least the early phase of it, as challenging as it was.
mhm.
I'm so grateful for the resilience I developed during that time,
Yeah.
for the white space and introspection that I gave
Mhm.
myself. Prior
Yeah.
to that, many of us were like on the rat race of the commute every day or, doing this or doing that. And everything was very routine. And it's
Yeah.
great in some ways from a time management perspective. That's great because you don't even have to think about things sometimes. You just do them and get them done and like boom, 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 boom. When
Right.
you all of a sudden had all this shift in how that went, it actually gave you time to think.
Mhm.
And trust me, I was really busy during that time. I have 4 kids and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
were not in school. Like it was challenging. I was still in the corporate world. And so it definitely was not an ideal situation. But with any struggle like that, with any sort of, rock your world type of event, it's an opportunity to really grow and break through. And I think that was a really helpful time in my journey, as roadblocky as it was, to really just put things into perspective and make space to listen to that intuitive nudge that has always been there,
Yes.
but got louder and louder and was able to get louder because of that time period.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. And I do think there's always blessings in the roadblocks, I believe. And I'm sure that was extremely challenging. And I know so many moms in particular that really struggled with homeschooling because schools were closed, working their full-time job. Maybe they had a side hustle or a full-time business as well. So they were juggling so many things. But how were you able to juggle all of that? Because you have 4 kids as well. But how were you able to do that?
Oh yeah, it was hard. It was hard. It was hard, especially because I know this affected moms and dads, because, right, we're both
Yeah.
parents in that sense. But my husband was an essential worker. So a lot of his schedule, while of course there were shifts and differences, he still left the house every day and kind of went to work business as usual in that sense. At a certain different level, of course, during COVID and the pandemic, we were very cautious and all of those things, and the rules had changed, but it didn't interrupt that as much as it did for the people that ended up working from home, which working from home is great. When I first got that news, I was like, awesome, this is saving me time every day. But when you lose all your support systems, school, childcare, right, help with just keeping the house in order, all of those things, it can really be extra challenging. So what did we do? Well, first and foremost, we tried our best to develop some sort of routine. And I think for many people, this was something that really saved them during this period, because we always relied on other things for routine. We relied on, I relied on public transportation, knowing what time the trains were leaving, drop off times at school. I relied on all of these things, the hours I needed to be in the office, to really structure my routine and help me make that. And I didn't have much say over it in some ways. And in some ways that's easier, right? Because you don't have to make all those decisions. As hard as it was to juggle that, it can be a little bit easier for some people because they don't have to start the routine from scratch on a blank piece of paper. But during that period, we all had to develop, or at least for me, if I needed to thrive or I wanted to thrive, I needed to develop some sort of system and routine in my home. So I'll just say, I remember, this started in March, right? And we were fast approaching summer, and without camp or childcare or anything, and the mom guilt that I wanted my kids to have some sort of summer at home, is we developed Camp Lonic in our house. And we did this, we had a chart, we did theme weeks every week, just to keep it interesting and not to get stagnant. And we came up with a system that worked so that I could be present at meetings for work. My kids could be quiet during that time. They could be playing outside for certain hours during the day. We did our best to really just work within the parameters that we had and fulfill and check boxes where we needed to. And by all means, it was not perfect, but implementing some sort of routine where the kids knew what to expect, I knew what to expect, I could commit to work things and other things. And, we all had to be a little flexible, but it worked wonders.
I love that. I think it too, going back to like the scheduling, because it does make it very routine when when the trains are coming, childcare, work, everything is structured for you. But that's like even entrepreneurship, it's scheduling everything yourself and just being able to get creative, especially during the pandemic when schools were closed, and having a lot of little ones at home and being able to strategically do that to really balance everybody out. So no one's fighting, or there's quiet time when you're on a meeting or things along those lines. And I'm sure a lot of moms struggle with that too now, being entrepreneurs, even like post pandemic. I mean, we're kind of still in it, but being able to really structure that. So what is your advice to moms that are maybe struggling with getting a little more strategic outside of what you just said too, but like a little further, if you could elaborate on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's beauty in entrepreneurship in the sense that you have that flexibility, you have that autonomy, but it can also feel like a curse sometimes, like, because you have all this pressure to do it all yourself and it's not done for you. So I would say, Set reasonable expectations on yourself every day. I like to tell my clients to focus on 3 small goals daily.
Mm.
3, I think, is a really reasonable magic number. And those are the things you absolutely hold yourself accountable for. Like when you have these pockets of free time, that's what you're laser focused on. Or, if you're someone who needs to time block them on your calendar. And I'm not talking about like the meetings that are already scheduled or the things that you know are going to get done no matter what. I'm talking about the 3 small goals that are on that list that you think about like, I'll get to them if I get to them. No, let's get to them. Let's make them happen, right? Let's do it. And they're small. They're not huge things that you look at them and you feel overwhelmed and you procrastinate and you pick up your phone and scroll social media and don't want to do it. Make them break them down into smaller steps, even if it's 1 step, and focus on that. And you can be fluid about when it gets done. It doesn't have to be at a specific time, although if that works for you, great. It could be when you have 10 minutes in between meetings, or when you have, when you're waiting on the pickup line at the school or anything like that. So I would say do that for sure. Ensure that you have a really solid morning routine. I think this is for any entrepreneur, really, not just moms. A solid morning routine really dictates the whole mood, the whole productivity of your day. So does this need to be 45 minutes, 60 minutes long? It could be, if that's what you need. It could also be 5, 10, or 15 minutes long, depending on what season you're in, depending how, your current routine looks, but ensure that you have that in place. And some tips that I like to give with a morning routine, and again, take what you want, leave what doesn't work for you. But if you're someone who, has exercise as part of their regime, or you want to ensure you're exercising regularly, you always have time for the things you put first. So start your day with a workout. Even if it's 20 minutes, even if it's just 10 minutes, do something in the morning to be in that space, right? To get that into your day. Hydrate. I know it sounds really simple, but a lot of people, first thing they do in the morning is they reach for a cup of coffee, right? Hey,
guilty.
Guess what? Yeah. It is so bad for you to
I know.
dehydrate before you hydrate. So maybe just get into the habit that while your coffee's brewing, you drink 1 glass of water, or before you get out of bed, you drink a glass of water. Habits are great. You don't even have to think about them. And once you've solidified that, it just comes naturally to you. And I know it sounds silly and it's something so small, but my whole philosophy when it comes to, really being intentional and efficient with your time, it's not just about the systems and the organization. It's about how you feel. And when you feel your best, you're more motivated, your output is best, your productivity levels are higher, you attract more of the clients you want, the attention you want. You come on podcasts like these and you say the things that people need to hear. You are just the best version of yourself. And simple things like drinking enough water, getting a workout in, doing a 10-minute journal exercise in the morning, whatever part of your morning routine is that makes you feel good, taking that time for yourself in the morning is crucial.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. I couldn't agree more. And I think too, it goes back to hydrating. I just was dehydrated the other day and I was like, why am I dehydrated? And I was like, oh, I didn't drink enough water. I always have my vitamins and water in the morning, but not enough. And you're absolutely right. It makes such a difference. So it might seem so small and simple, but it makes such a huge impact on your health if you are not doing that. So I'm glad you're bringing that up because it is true. And I loved all those tips you gave. And I kind of want to jump back to what you do. I know you have a podcast. Could you elaborate on what your podcast is all about?
Absolutely. Yeah. My podcast is called Mama Work It, very on brand with my business. And it is for the ambitious working mom who has lots of ideas, has lots of ambition, but doesn't necessarily know how to make it work from a time perspective. So we have amazing guests who come on the show. And I do solo episodes as well with tips and ideas. We were ranked in the top 50 podcasts for moms in 2021 and 2022. So that was super exciting to learn about. And I would love for you to listen if that sounds like the type of podcast that, you need to hear.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure so many people can benefit from listening and just getting all the wisdom that you instill on your podcast, but also all the guests that you have on as well. And I'm curious, with all the success you've had with your clients, could you give us a success story you've had recently of a client that you've worked with that you were just like, wow, this was such a transformation?
Ooh, yeah. Let me think about who I want to share about right now.
I'm sure there's
So,
several.
so I have a client who I adore. She is an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
She runs her own law practice. She is super successful, and she's also a mom. And what she came to me for was wanting to create more balance in her life. I'm sure if you're an entrepreneur listening or watching this right now, you're passionate about what you do in business. I mean, we wouldn't be in business if we didn't just eat, breathe, and live what we're doing, right? And the output and the impact we want to make on the world, on our clients, and all the things. And she's no different. And sometimes that can feel hard when it comes to all the other things in your life, whether you're a parent or you're not, right?
Mhm.
Your relationship, if you're in a romantic relationship, your friendships, your family, just your environment of where you live, all the things. And so she took part in my time management 4-week program. So we were able in 4-week period to really completely transform how her work-life balance was. So she was able to instill, regular exercise routines into her daily and weekly kind of schedule. She was able to um, create more of a community and friendships with other working moms who were kind of going through similar seasons in life. She was able to kind of, without guilt, set time for herself to do things for her that weren't only after the work was done. She was able to get into a mindset and space that didn't have to be a selfish act. It was a necessary act in kind of her regular routine. So I love that program because I think 4 weeks is a fairly short amount of time, but the transformations that people can get in that short period can be really life changing.
Yeah.
And when she wrote her testimonial, the thing that I loved reading the most was that she signed up for this because she thought it was a time management program, which it is, but it was so much more than that. Because,
Mhm.
in my opinion, and I think everyone listening can agree, time, it's not just the hours, the minutes, the seconds, it's what you do with it. It's how you spend it. It's like the money, right? It doesn't matter what dollar bills are or like the $100 or whatever. How do you spend that money? Are you going on amazing vacations? Are you donating to charities you care about? Are you making memories with friends and family? It's all about the intentionality behind it and what you do with it. And I really think with your time, it's the same thing. I think how you use it determines what you're able to achieve, how successful you're able to become, how you're feeling at the end of each day, not like defeated and exhausted, but really accomplished and proud. You can be tired, but you could still be accomplished and proud of what you did. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I love that. And a lot of times there are programs out there that it's like the face value is time management, but what they get underneath all of that is so much more. And that's just a testament to the work you do. So I appreciate you sharing that beautiful story. And your client is very lucky to have you as well. But I wanted to ask you, what are 2 to 3 tips you could give us as entrepreneurs, people maybe starting out or maybe a little bit further along, that could really help them in their journey that you wish maybe you knew when you started?
Yes. Okay. So the first tip I'll say has to do with words that you're speaking, words that you're using. And I know a lot of people, entrepreneurs, non entrepreneurs, people in general, like to say the phrase, I don't have time, a lot. How many times do you say that, Dr.
Oh my
Caroline?
gosh.
Yeah.
Not any as much, but I used to say
Yeah.
it a lot.
Yes, me too. I used to say it all the time, like all day, every day.
Mhm.
And what happens is when you speak these words out loud, you start to believe them. They start to become your truth.
Mhm.
And in fact, you don't have time because you're saying this all the time. So if someone invites you to, dinner, or if you're constantly telling yourself you don't have time to exercise or do something for yourself, well, that's what it is. You will never find or make the time to do it because you are firmly planted in that belief system. So I would challenge you, if you find yourself in this place, to start replacing the words I don't have time with the words, "It's not a priority to me." It's
Mhm.
not a priority to me. So let's quickly exemplify this and what this looks like.
Mhm.
Let's take that exercise example, because I hear this a lot. And I think too, as entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
we often wake up and we just want to dive into work or check email, or, it just feels like the work is always there. There's always something more that can be done. And
Yeah.
that's exciting. And like there's passion there. And that's good. I mean, who doesn't want to love what they do?
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, we forget that like something as simple as a workout or as taking care of ourselves can actually propel our productivity so much quicker, so much faster, and so much more effectively. So let's say you find yourself saying, "I don't have time to work out," and we start replacing it with, "Working out isn't a priority to me." You're either going to feel one of two ways. And in my opinion, they are both winning. So, on one hand, maybe you say working out isn't a priority to me, and you feel like, well, you know what? It's just not. It's just not. Maybe it's not right now, right? Maybe in this season you're in, maybe you're just not focused on that right now. And all of a sudden, you feel like a weight lifted. You feel lighter, you feel less shame, less guilt, because you're intentionally choosing not to make it a priority. It's not like time is controlling you. You're in charge, you're at the driver's seat, and you can kind of move on with your day. And even if you don't get that workout in, you don't feel like you should be doing it. And so I love that, because even though, again, the exercise isn't happening, you feel good about the decision you're making. You're comfortable in that skin, winning. Now, on the other hand, if you say these words out loud, "Working out isn't a priority to me," and you don't feel good when you speak those words, you feel kind of icky, you feel kind of misaligned. Well, what's going to happen? You're going to make it a priority. You're going to find a way to make it work. You're going to take time away from the work. You're going to wake up earlier or go to bed later, or actually step away from your desk at some point and go take a walk or hit the gym or whatever that looks like to you. And you're going to make it a priority because it is important to you. So I think this simple shift in the words that we're using can really change what we're doing and how we're intentionally using our time on a daily basis. And now this goes for anything on your to-do list, anything that, you're kind of unsure about, like, should I do it? Should I not? Try doing this. Anytime you find yourself saying, "I don't have time," replace it and see how you feel, how you react, and then base your decision on that.
I love that. And, that's something that I actually used to say too is like, okay, well, it's not a priority, and like reframing that and really getting to the root of it. But I love like adding the feeling in too of how you're feeling, what is around that as well, because it's so much deeper too. It's sometimes an excuse, or majority of the time it's an excuse, because we always find time for what's important to us. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I'm curious because a lot of times we have so much on our plate, but what are your thoughts around multitasking?
Yeah, I love to talk about multitasking, because I think that if you listen to a lot of like personal or professional development experts out there, entrepreneurs, the majority of them point blank have a really black and white view on this. And they just
Mhm.
say, don't multitask. I'm sure you've heard this before. I've heard it before. I
Mhm.
mean, we tend to think about, I mean, the truth is, when you multitask, your mind is in a few different places and you're not fully focused on any of the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
So it makes total sense. I have complete respect for this type of advice, but but I'm a realist in a lot of ways, and I'm a mom of four kids, running a business, like managing a house, like all these things. And I know your listeners, as entrepreneurs, wear a lot of hats, just like I do, right?
Yeah.
Like we wear a lot of hats. Many people are solopreneurs. Many people have other things outside of their business. I hope you do, that you are responsible for, that you enjoy doing. And so
Mhm.
I think there's a reality that you
Mhm.
can kind of commit to when it comes with
Yeah.
multitasking that doesn't make you feel how multitasking typically makes you feel, which is what? Overwhelmed, frazzled. Like I think of that visual of somebody juggling the plates and just waiting for one to fall on the floor and break, So my mantra when it comes to
Mhm.
multitasking is really about choosing what to multitask effectively. And I
Mhm.
like to say you multitask the mindless and you solo task the mindful. So you multitask the things you can do on autopilot. the things that if they got a little bit messed up, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Maybe those are things you do around the house. Maybe they're things like super, super simple things that you're doing, but like if you made a mistake, if you were thinking about something else while you did it and something got messed up, it wouldn't really matter. It's okay, right? And I really encourage people to pair this with something that potentially even like brings you a little bit more joy. So I think about a lot of things I do in the house at home. They don't have to do with my business, right? They have to do with like keeping the house moving here. And everybody who lives in a house has something to do: laundry, dishes, all the things, right? Unless you've got a full staff at home, which I strive to one day, but I don't right now. I'm responsible for many of those things. And I love to pair that stuff with things that make me feel like I'm being a little bit more productive in my business, or like I'm learning something new, or just something that makes me smile and happy. So maybe that's listening to a podcast or watching this show. Maybe that is catching up with a friend. Maybe that is just brainstorming with a business bestie and kind of coming up with your next $1 million idea while you're washing dishes or while you're folding laundry. It can totally be done. And all of a sudden you stop and you're like, wow, it's like, I feel so productive. The past half an hour, I've gotten this done and I've come up with this great new entrepreneurial, product or service that I want to do. So multitask the mindless, solo task the mindful. The mindful is where people kind of make the mistake when it comes to multitasking. They're trying to do all the things all the time. And when you multitask things that shouldn't be, that's when you feel defeated. That's when you make mistakes that take much longer to repair. That's when you're emailing the wrong person or writing the wrong thing. Like, these are where the complicated situations derive from, or you're not cultivating something that's really important to you. Like, you're not giving your full attention to a creative project you want to work on, or to your family, or to your friends, or your significant other. Those are the things you want to be fully present for. Dinner with your family or your spouse or your partner, right? Working on that creative project at work, things that require your full brain power. Don't try and multitask that. It's not realistic. It's not sustainable. This is why, just really tying this back really quick, this is why that start of that pandemic was so challenging for so many people, because all of a sudden they were asked to multitask so many important areas of their life, like watching their kids if they're parents and working their jobs or they're running their businesses. So it was an impossible situation. And I think it's a root cause of that great resignation of so many businesses, not being able to survive during that time. And so I'm a big fan of solo tasking things that are really important to you.
I love how you explain that and just really broke it down. I think it just puts perspective of how to manage our time in an effective way without burning out, without feeling overwhelmed, which is what I'm curious. What are some tips to beating overwhelm when you have a massive to-do list, like what we were just talking about? You kind of already alluded to some of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the big mistake people make when they make that to-do list is they brain dump everything on paper, which is good. Get it out of your head, get it on paper. Nothing wrong with that. I'm a huge fan of doing that. But then they try and work off of this like CVS receipt length type of list.
Yes.
And, I don't know about you, but when I look at a list like that, I feel like, whoa, that's a lot of stuff to do. And I get sometimes analysis paralysis, right? Which means I don't even know where to start. So I just won't.
Yeah.
Or I have this thought of, ooh, even if I get one or two things done, it's not going to really make a huge dent. Why bother? I'm super demotivated by it. So I would say, if this is you, if you find yourself in this space, do what I mentioned before. Focus on 3 small goals daily. Highlight 3 things, circle 3 things, only focus on those things. Those are what you want to focus on, not this entire list. Hey, if you get them all done and you want to be an overachiever and do more, good for you. But as long as you got those 3 things done, you can be done. You can feel productive and fulfilled and like you accomplished what you needed to do that day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you said that too, because I think that's one of the things too. It's like the top 3 priorities, like at least for me, it's my health, my business, relationships, and just being able to focus on 3 things. It allows you to feel productive and you're not feeling overwhelmed. Of course, you want to do more a lot of times, like overachievers, former overachiever, kind of still there, but being able to really understand too the depth of, okay, well, I got this done, and being proud of ourselves for getting that done, because especially as entrepreneurs, we do one thing, there's 100 more things to do. There's always something to do, like you said earlier too. It's very true. But how do we really hone in on what's important and really manage our time effectively? But I've been enjoying this conversation so much with you, and I'm sure everyone else is as well. And we're going to jump into the rapid fire questions if you're ready for them.
I think I'm ready. Let's go.
We will see. So the first question is, what motivates you to work smarter?
Ooh, success. I want to be successful in all areas of my life, in my business, in my parenthood, in my relationship. Like, I want to feel like I'm thriving in all those areas.
Oh, I love it. That's a good place to be. So if you were a superhero, what powers or power would you have?
The ability to just like at the snap of a finger, clean my house, make meals, do laundry, like do all the things I don't want to do.
Yes, I want that power too.
Yeah.
That would be a good one. So if you were to share a meal with any four individuals, living or dead, who would they be?
I think I would love to share a meal with mentors that I have followed or that have impacted me on my entrepreneurial journey.
Mm-hmm.
So I think of women that I admire in the business world, like Brene Brown, Marie Forleo, Elizabeth Gilbert, Gabby Bernstein. Like, those are some big names that come to mind. I just feel like that would be such an incredible space to just listen and learn. And I also think like they're probably really fun to have dinner with too. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love all four of them.
Yeah.
Oh, what is the phone app that you use the most?
Oh my God, this is so boring, but my calendar.
You'd be
So
surprised. You're not the only one that says that.
so on target with my niche, but it's true. I practice what I preach, you guys. That's it.
There you go. Right here and there. What is the last book that you've read?
So I listen to a lot of my books,
Mhm.
but the last book that I listened to that I came across, it's not new or anything. I'm like not that trendy, but it's called Note to Self:
Hmm,
Inspiring Words from Inspiring People, and it was compiled by Gail King.
hmm.
And it is just a bunch of really successful, incredible entrepreneurs, politicians, all different, entertainers from all different areas of life, just writing letters to their earlier selves, like younger
Oh, wow.
versions of themselves.
Yeah.
And it was just really amazing. It was an exercise I ended up doing in my membership community with my people because I just found it to be so impactful. And I really, really enjoyed listening to that.
That sounds so impactful and empowering too, just to hear the voices from previous, right? Like it just
Mhm.
gives you perspective.
Yeah. And I actually really enjoyed listening to this in particular versus reading it because everyone spoke their own, like read their own letter
Oh,
aloud.
oh
So
wow.
I thought that gave it even just like an extra layer of authenticity.
Oh, that's beautiful. Because you can really feel it when they're saying it from their own words speaking them.
Yeah.
So if you were to have a movie about your life thus far, who would play you?
Oh my gosh. I love this question. I was thinking about it. I would say, well, let's just totally level up. Like, I want someone really beautiful to play me in a movie, even if they don't look much like me. But I did want to pick someone kind of tall because I'm 5'9". So I would say Blake Lively or Mandy Moore.
Oh, I could see Blake Lively. I
Oh,
could.
thank you. Oh my gosh.
What is your favorite family recipe, whether it's traditional or you love making it together as a family?
Well, I have 4 little boys, so we don't do a ton of cooking together because my kitchen would be like a hot mess disaster. Although my middle guy loves baking with me, and I do let him do that, even though it is a little messier. But one of the most delicious things that I love to cook, my family is from Italy. I grew up in Italy and in the US. And so we make a
Oh,
lot of authentic Italian dishes. And I love cooking lasagna. And I do everything like from scratch. There's no
oh
like
wow.
jar sauce or anything like that. So it is super delicious.
Oh
Not that
wow.
if you make your lasagna with jar sauce, it's not. I'm just letting you know I do mine like with a little bit more like back end work there.
Oh, that's amazing. What part of Italy are you from?
Yeah, we're from Southern Italy, from Bari. It's like the heel of the boot.
Nice, nice. My family's from Italy too. My mom's side.
Oh, nice.
An hour outside of Rome.
Cool.
Small world. What is your favorite way to spend a day off? So if you're not seeing clients, you're not doing your podcast.
Yeah, I would say I would love to get a workout in, if that's
Mhm.
possible, some type of like even 10 or 15 like meditation or breath work or journaling, like something for I like to feed my mind, body, and soul. Like those are my three self-care goals every day. So getting a workout in, doing some sort of like meditative or breath work session, even super quick, hanging with my family. So like doing something fun with my kids, my husband, if he's off as well. And then if I could really end it on a high note, like maybe doing a date night or like a night out with friends where I could get a little dressed up, not have to like cook dinner for anyone and do that. Yeah. That's like the ideal day for me.
That sounds like the perfect day.
Yeah.
And what is something an outsider wouldn't know about your industry? I know you're in a couple industries.
Yeah, I would say, I do a lot of, corporate speaking. I do a lot of work just with clients, B2C clients, and that way of coaching and things like that, writing. And when I tell people I focus on time management and productivity, sometimes I see that go right over their heads and they're like the glaze, right? Because sometimes I feel like those words sound kind of rigid, kind of boring, kind of like obsessed with schedules and like following rules. And like the thing is, I don't teach time management like that at all. Like I am very much about feeling good to do good. I want you to feel like the best version of yourself so that you have the best productivity, so that you are super motivated and energized and excited every day to do what you do. And I want you to feel like when you go to sleep at night, you feel really good about your output and not like you had to just stick to this like terrible schedule that you created because you created it. So we're all about, obviously there's systems, there's tools, there's things we're going to be doing on the organization front, but there's also a lot of like inner work. There's a lot of flowing. There's a lot of flexibility paired with accountability. So it's a whole level.
It sounds like it. Well, Marisa, I've been enjoying this conversation so much. I so appreciate you being so transparent, sharing your journey, the ups, downs, everything in between, but really how you're helping so many individuals manage their time, be more productive, but feel good from the inside out. And that's what it's all about. This channel is all about mind-body connection, and you just embody that as well. So I appreciate you coming on today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So make sure to like, subscribe, comment below. What was the biggest takeaway from Marisa? I'm sure she would love to see the comments as well. And we'll see you on the next video.